15 breathtaking islands you've never heard of. Have you ever dreamed of escaping to a secret island paradise, one that's not overrun by tourists and still feels untouched by time? Today, we're uncovering 22 breathtaking islands you probably never heard of. These are places where nature dominates, mysteries linger, and every wave whispers adventure. Let's dive in. Before moving forward, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for future interesting videos. 1. Taiwan. Taiwan ticks all the boxes. It's slender yet soaring, with 260-odd, 3,000-meter-plus peaks protruding its spine, all carpeted in unapologetically green subtropical vegetation, tea estates, and seasonal sakura. It's contemporary but still culture-packed, with cosmopolitan Taipei feeling a world away from old Tainan's temples, though high-speed rail will whisk you between the pair in under 95 minutes. And its coastlines are distinctly different, with surf-pounded western volcanic shorelines, tranquil golden sands in the south, and cooler beaches in the north that are moments from hot springs. And that's before counting the country's smaller islands. If you want to experience all of East Asia's magic on a pocket-sized adventure, whether sleeping in a temple, sighting sakura, attending Taiwan's Lantern Festival, or devouring street food at first-class night markets, Taiwan is just the ticket. 2. The Falkland Islands. At South America's edge, the vastness of Antarctica looming beyond, the Falkland Islands house some 500,000 pairs of breeding penguins. 5 species of these flightless birds can be found across the numerous unique islands that form this hauntingly beautiful archipelago. Photographing the Falklands is an absolute dream, but it's much more than just a camera-friendly, penguin-peppered wild isle. Out on these barren landscapes, where sheep could be your only companions for hours, you'll experience a solitary, isolated, and remote escape without the need for an expedition ship. 3. Madagascar. Few countries in the world can rival Madagascar for distinct biodiversity. Set off the coast of Southeast Africa, Madagascar's unique development over millennia has gifted the island nation with some serious fauna and flora credentials. It's most famous for its iconic lemurs, vivid panther chameleons, and towering ethereal baobab trees. But that's only part of the story. It's believed around 90% of the island's wildlife is endemic species that aren't found anywhere on the planet. 4. Sado Island, Japan. Sado Island is the polar opposite of Tokyo. There are no skyscrapers or fast-paced living here. Instead, traditions rule supreme, temples dot the interior, and the rugged coastline is a far cry from the capital's urban sprawl. After riding the speedy Shinkansen train to Niigata, followed by the hydrofoil to Sado, slowing down is obligatory. Once a hive of gold mining activity, a fair chunk of Japan's wealth originated from here. The closure of Sado's mines saw the island's industrial glory days dwindle, and it became something of a time capsule. The mines are still there, but nowadays on a walk deep underground, you'll be met by mechanical models of workers. Hey, it's still Japan, staring at you rather than real employees. 5. Sicily, Italy. Sicily is a living time capsule for human civilizations. Phoenicians, Greeks, Romans, Arabs, Byzantines, and all the others who have been and gone. This Italian island has been seducing seafarers for millennia. Their stories, flavors, architectural styles, and sects have stacked high, creating something of an open-air museum. In Syracuse, the remains of both Roman and Greek amphitheaters coexist. At Villa Romana del Casale, you'll find what UNESCO call the finest mosaics in situ anywhere in the Roman world. And as you traverse atop the Valley of the Temples in Agrigento, Italy's 2025 capital of culture, ancient Greek architecture transports you to some 6 centuries before Christ himself. 6. Dominica, Caribbean. If you're craving a Caribbean vacation full of relaxing beaches, rum punches, and luxury resorts, you're in the wrong place. Dominica has those, yes. But here, on the so-called Nature Island, your days are far more likely to be filled with spine-tingling canyoning adventures, exotic bird watching on multi-day hikes, or kayaking alongside sun-baked black sand beaches. This is the untouched Caribbean at its best. And the best things to do in Dominica are fully focused on nature. However, given a new runway extension was completed in 2024, opening up direct flights from the USA, Miami, and the world's longest cable car is expected to open in late 2025. This might be the last year Dominica remains relatively under the radar. 7. Komodo National Park, Indonesia. How do you make a typical tropical island in Southeast Asia even more dramatic? By adding some sunbathing dragons into the mix. Indonesia lords many of the world's most magical islands, bragging around 17,000 in total. But it's Komodo National Park where you'll find some of the nation's most unique islands, housing the endemic Komodo dragon, a giant monitor lizard. Much of the protected park is uninhabited and focused on wildlife encounters. And stumbling upon one of these mind-boggling species, some of which can grow up to 3 meters in length, far overshadows the pink sand beaches and jaw-dropping isles you'll cross on the boat ride to reach the lizards. But don't get too close. Komodo dragons would have no qualms about eating a human for lunch if provoked. 8. The Faroe Islands, Kingdom of Denmark. The 18 main islands that form the far-flung Faroe Islands archipelago, almost halfway between Norway and Iceland, have been shaped by fierce winds and roaring Atlantic waters. In the 9th century, Norse settlers arrived to try to tame these once volcanic islands, and until this day, the archipelago's seafaring sagas and inhospitable conditions have prevailed. But the Faroes are far from underdeveloped. Futuristic buildings contrast with their traditional turfroofs in Tórshavn. Award-winning chefs play with the ocean's bounty, and underwater tunnels and ferries keep communities connected. 9. Wajup, Rottnest Island, Australia. If you've never heard of a quokka before, I'm sorry. Meeting one fast became a new life goal as soon as I learned about these smiley, cute critters. But it gets even better. The location to say hey to these adorable marsupials is one of the best islands to visit in Australia, glorious Wajup, also known as Rottnest Island. After just a short boat hop from Perth, Western Australia's capital, you'll arrive at this car-free island. Slow jaunts on foot or by bike will bring you to salt white sands and turquoise bays, and laid-back cabin stays will keep you here. Many people come to satisfy their quokka obsession, but it's also just a top-notch island for a holiday. Not that it's always been an island. Thousands of years ago, this idyllic speck was attached to the mainland. 10. São Miguel, Azores, Portugal. Surf-ready black sand beaches, geothermal hot springs begging to be bathed in, lofty hikes around crater lakes, and whale watching aplenty. Welcome to São Miguel, a real-life Eden halfway between Europe and Canada. São Miguel is the largest of Portugal's 9-strong Azores archipelago and is arguably one of the best islands to visit in Europe for both adventure and relaxation. Imagine a kind of Switzerland meets New Zealand, one that has been shaped by volcanic activity, aggressive Atlantic swells, and rock-chiseling waterfalls. Some might call it the Hawaii of Europe, but the Azores are far less developed, and that is very much their adrenaline-led charm. 11. The Chinampas, Mexico City. I can hear you screaming the question from here. How can there be islands in Mexico City? Well, indulge me here. These are some of the more unique islands on this list. The Chinampas are artificial farming islands and an absolute engineering feat. The first to be built predate the Aztec Empire, likely constructed around 1200 CE. But this isn't the only lake-based building work in the city. In fact, nearly all of Mexico City is constructed atop Lake Texcoco, or rather, where it used to be. Drained by the Spanish following their invasion, it was their way of tackling flooding and giving more land for settlement. However, before the colonization period, the Aztecs already had much more advanced technology and controlled the water levels by canals, ridges, and embankments. So impressive are the Mesoamerican Chinampas that they form part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site listing of the city. Once inside the gates protecting the natural zone where migratory birds and age-old farming practices reign, you'll be able to witness how these timeless techniques continue until this day. 12. Moskenesøya, Lofoten, Norway. Picking a favorite Lofoten island is no easy task. Norway's beloved archipelago of dramatic volcanic rocks piercing the North Atlantic is spectacular from head to toe. But at a push, I'd argue that Moskenesøya, the island at the end of Lofoten's tail, is the best island to visit in the archipelago, simply because the further you get from the mainland, the more lost at sea you start to feel. Getting here is half of the adventure. I took the scenic train across the Arctic Circle before traversing the whole archipelago by bus, admiring every cinematic inch of these mystical isles. There's also a ferry from Bodo, one of Europe's capitals of culture 2024, which is free for food passengers, making exploring Norway's northern region super easy. From the turf-roofed red cabins of Rhine, backed by jagged peaks, to the sensational white Arctic beach, lapped by the cleanest of waters, every second on Moskenesøya will send shivers down the spine. 13. Raja Ampat, Indonesia. Raja Ampat, an archipelago in the far east of Indonesia, is home to some of the most mesmerizing islands I've ever visited, especially for scuba diving. Out here, off the coast of West Papua, I was transported to that tropical postcard. You know, the perfect dreamy mix of palms, silica sands, and verdant islands that shroud just a handful of wooden cabins far removed from the modern world. Sadly, in the years since I went to Raja Ampat, a lot has changed. Larger luxury hotels have started to be built and small liveaboard scuba ships are being replaced by larger, reef-damaging vessels. All of this has put pressure on the pristine landscapes and local communities. So if you are considering a visit to Raja Ampat, really think about it, especially as it's going to take a big chunk of time to get out to this truly remote and isolated destination. 14. Niziros Island, Greece. Greece is undoubtedly one of Europe's best beach destinations and brags some of the world's finest islands for a holiday. Some, such as Santorini, are so famous they are almost sinking under the weight of tourism. But if you fancy a slightly more offbeat volcanic isle, turn your attention to Niziros, one of Greece's Dodecanese islands. It's got all the typical Greek island essentials you could want: whitewashed houses, blue tile work, and tavernas dishing out staples. However, you'll also have the chance to walk inside a hulking caldera for a proper Aegean-enveloped volcano escape. In fact, the whole island is essentially an active volcano. Thankfully, the last activity was a steam eruption in 1888. There's still plenty of surface bubbling to gawk at once you're inside the caldera, but in eruption terms, it's remained relatively calm for many years. Stefanos, one of the world's largest hydrothermal craters, is what makes Niziros one of Europe's hidden gems. Walk the rim and then descend into the otherworldly landscape to get a close-up of bubbling sulfur. It's a smelly and spectacular experience. Yet, once you're back on the coast amongst whitewashed tavernas, cerulean waves and bougainvillea-framed streets, you'll almost forget you're holidaying on a volcano. 15. Sri Lanka. The pearl of the Indian Ocean, Sri Lanka, has had plenty of news coverage in recent years, from being tourism's new dining to political and economic crisis. Beyond the headlines, however, this will forever be a land of tea-shrouded hilltop villages, ocean-calling coastlines, and wildlife writ large. Sri Lanka is an incredible island to experience a little bit of everything bundled up into a manageable size. The cuisine is outstanding whether you prefer fragrant curries or fresh fish. Wildlife lovers are spoiled with elephant migrations on land or whale spotting in the deep blue. Meanwhile, nature lovers can take their pick of rambling trails through forests, tea plantations, or along footprint-free glistening shorelines. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for future interesting videos. Thanks for watching.